Cool. So we go ahead and get started. We are going to talk about starting seeds and propagating at home. Now it is kind of a little bit late. Normally we have these classes. We do this class in February because a lot of times you could start a lot of seedlings. If you took that calendar class last on Tuesday, you'll have a better understanding when to start things. But if you're growing for like seedlings for like for cool weather, like if you're growing like cabbage and kale and stuff, you're pretty late on that point. If you want to do seedlings at this point for cool weather gardens, which is like your March, April, May gardens, like greens and root crops and things like that, you're better luck just to go out at this point and buy seedlings at local nurseries. I know like Ace Hardware has some, and they're like letting, I know they're letting like 10 people in at a time and stuff. So like there's different ways. Some of them are staying open. Not sure with like the recent order, but it's good. Call ahead of time. You could order. There's lots of places you can order seedlings too as well. But for warm weather stuff, if you're planning on doing a summer garden, which starts around mid-May when like soil temperatures get up to about 70 degrees, it's different than outside temperatures. It could be maybe 90 degrees outside, but it'll be like the soil temperature just is slow to catch up. So once the soil is 70 degrees, you can start, warm weather things. Like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and stuff. So even at this point, I mean, it is a little bit late start. Usually people start this stuff in like March, but you're a little behind. But you can still do if you start like definitely like this weekend, start getting some supplies and stuff and seeds and start growing. You can for sure start your seedlings, your warm weather seedlings. I would just do it as soon as possible at this point. Because yeah, I mean you are a little behind, but it's still better than nothing. But again, seedlings, if you don't want to do that, you can always just buy like mid-May is when most nurseries and garden stores are going to start stocking up on their warm weather seedlings. Yeah, I mean it's just, we'll talk about the reasons, good and bad, why to do seedlings. But for most part, I would just recommend though. I mean, definitely everyone should try it out. But it is something that you got to enjoy it really. I mean, if it's like a pain, or annoyance or something, you're just not gonna. You're going to forget about it and things like that. But I mean, a lot of people really enjoy it, and they get. So I definitely would, recommend like, leaning towards like whether you enjoy it or not. But we'll go ahead and get started. We'll talk a little bit more about why to do that stuff. All right. So table of contents. What topics we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about why do we do seedlings? Why do we grow our own seedlings and go through all this trouble? We're going to talk about choosing what to plant, growing seedlings at home. We'll talk about techniques and things that you need. We're planting what you grow. We'll talk about how to actually plant the things that you grow, and then we're going to talk about propagation. This is my favorite thing. I love propagation. Propagation is like mainly like perennials and stuff. Like let's say you have like a rosemary, every year you can divide that into like 5 or 6 rosemaries, plant them all over your garden, give them to people. If you have like, grape plant, a grapevine, you can cut cuttings off of it and root them out. And then all of a sudden you have 20 grapevines that you can give out. So it's really fun. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll try to do a little hands-on demonstration to show you guys. Yeah, I feel bad because normally we do this class in person and we have a lot of hands-on stuff, but we'll try to supplement it as we go. Cool. So quick question. So I'm remote from my garden. Enja, you said I'm remote from my garden until June. Can I start in the 5-gallon buckets? You could start I mean, if you're doing a container garden, yeah, you can for sure. You can start, but it's more about cool weather. Right now, until mid-May, you can only plant cool weather crops. And I'll have a slide. I'll show you which ones are cool weather and warm weather in a second. All right. So why grow seedlings? Why go through all this trouble? There's advantages and disadvantages. I mean, one is just a big one is saving money. If you think about, I mean, each little seedling that you buy, from a store could be $2, $3, $4, depending on the size of the seedling. And if you're planting, like 20, if you have a big garden, you're planting like 10 tomatoes, that could, add up after a while. And then, or if you buy a pack of tomato seeds, that maybe you'll get 30, 40, 50 seeds in that for like $2, $3, $4, depending on what variety. And then with, you know, a little bit of money, you know, in startup to kind of buy your equipment and things like that, you could, you know, you can grow, you know, 50 tomato plants. So you could definitely save a lot of money growing your own seedlings, and especially like the bigger gardens. It really makes a lot more sense. Like especially if you're doing like one of those national park gardens where it's like a 20 by 20 plot. I mean, you could drop hundreds of dollars on seedlings, or you could drop, you know, $20, $30 on seeds. So it's definitely economically more beneficial. And it's also a great way to increase production in growing seasons. You always want, we'll show you a slide of which, you know, there's a handful of things you have to direct seed because they just do not do well transplanting and that seedlings. But for most part, most things you can plant as a seedling. And that's really important because if, you know, mid-May, if you put a tomato seed in the ground in what we call direct seeding in mid-May, I mean, it's going to take months to get to the point where you're going to start producing, you know, tomatoes. And that's going to be like maybe in like August, September, you'll get some tomatoes, and then, you know, first frost is going to come and kill your tomato. But if you plant a really healthy, nice sized seedling, which a seedling's like a baby, it's like a baby plant that you're growing indoors or you're buying from a nursery that grows in a greenhouse. If you plant that, you know, maybe it's like, you know, 3, 4, 5 inches tall, you know, you plant that in the garden, it's already got a root ball, it's going to just jumpstart and run with it. And you could possibly have, you know, you could be eating tomatoes, you know, in early summer. So you're going to really increase your production by months by you know, doing seedlings. So really recommend it. Again, like quality control, you have a lot more when you grow your own seedlings. You have a lot more control. Like a lot of times nurseries, they don't have, like, maybe they don't have the great staff, or they're not trained staff. And the big thing is they don't pot up, which we'll talk about this. You keep it in a small pot, and the roots start, you know, growing in circles and stuff, and it's just a really unhealthy group. You know, makes an unhealthy plant. You have to, every time your roots, you know, touch the edge of the pot, you want to, you know, move it to a bigger pot just to keep that healthy root growth. So if you don't have nurseries that don't do that, you're going to be buying some unhealthy seedlings. So it's a great way to kind of just keep that quality control in your own hands. The disadvantages is the upfront cost. I mean, we'll talk about, I mean, there's cheap ways to do it. We'll definitely talk about very cheap ways using some, you know, windows and reflecting light and things like that. So there's definitely very cheap ways, but if you really want to get become like an expert, you know, and grow a lot, you're going to need to, you know, fork over, you know, some money for some like indoor grow systems and lights and stands, and we'll talk about all that stuff. But that could be, you know, I mean, like depending on your setup, depending if you're using the type of lights you're using and stuff, it could be, you know, like 50 to 100, 150, you know, dollars. So it could be a little bit of an upfront cost, but in the long run, you'll get that money back as long as you're able to, you know, put that upfront cost. Labor is a big one. You just, like I said, you just gotta love it, because you're gonna be taking care of it. I mean, these are gonna be your babies. You know, you gotta like water them every day and take care of them and make sure, you know, deal with any issues. So it's, you know, so yeah, you know, you gotta love this, or it's just going to be super annoying. Yeah, definitely. And just like a risk, there are a couple, you know, if you overwater, or if you have some kind of disease or something, I mean, there's a chance you could, you know, and that's a big bummer. Like, I mean, you could have you know, you could be growing a whole tray of like, you know, 30, 40 beautiful seedlings, and all of a sudden they all just die, and that is a bummer. I mean, I'm not to scare anyone. That's very, I mean, as long as you're mainly it's just watering. As long as you're very intentional about when to water, and we'll talk about that more. It's not really going to happen. But there's always a chance that something can happen and you could lose your seedlings, and that's a bit of a bummer. But that very rarely happens. I mean, some people will lose some seedlings, you know, but they very rarely lose all of them, and that's usually with, you know, people that just don't know what they're doing. Yeah, so that's kind of why, you know, the advantages, disadvantages, you kind of just have to, you know, decide for yourself. I definitely recommend everyone just like try it out, you know, even if you just try it out with your south-facing window, and we'll talk a little about how to do that with the windows. And then if you like it, you know, enjoy it, which a lot of people do, then you can kind of expand to like buy your own grow lights and things like that. All right, so now first part is like choosing what to plant. So this is a great time to start getting your seed catalogs if you haven't got your seed catalogs yet. And all seed catalogs are free, so go to all those seed, you know, sites and start signing up. Southern Exposure is a really great. It's a worker-owned one, co-op, and it's in Virginia, so it's very similar to the climates that we're experiencing. So, which is good for like the recommendations and things like that. You know, Johnny Seed Select is another great one. Felco. There's actually, I'll show you a link. We have all the seed companies you can order from on a link and on the Doug Network website, which I'll show you in a second. But yeah, definitely at least, you know, start ordering Southern Exposure and Johnny Seed Select. You know, start getting their, you know, get on their email list, and they'll start sending you some catalogs so you can start deciding what to plant. The first steps is deciding what to plant, and I'm sure if you've taken a couple of my classes already, you're going to see a couple of repeat slides, but I really just want to emphasize that just understanding, you know, there's two groups of crops. There's warm weather crops that are good for summer crops. You know, you plant them like mid-May, and you can grow them till probably like, you know, October. And then there's spring and fall, you know, cool weather crops that you can plant. You know, we have a short spring season and a short fall season. So I'll show you dates for these things in a second. But I mean, the spring season's like March, April, May, and then the fall season's like, you know, August, September, October. So there, we talked a lot about this already, but I mean, there are you could be flexible with cool weather things, you know, especially like a lot of people will grow lettuces over the summer. These things typically don't like, you know, heat. So if there's more heat, they'll start getting bitter. They'll bolt, which is they'll try to flower. They'll die in the heat. But if you provide them with a little bit of shade, like you plant maybe a row of lettuce behind a row of tomatoes, so it gets a little partial shade. Water them a little heavy. Maybe get some shade block. You can grow a lot of these things throughout the summer. I know chard does really well, and collards do really well. I mean, again, they're a little bit more bitter as opposed to in spring and fall. They're a lot sweeter because especially if there's a frost, because it actually initiates a lot of these cool weather plants. In order to survive in cold weather, they'll transfer a lot of their starches to sugars, and because sugar water freezes at a lower temperature, and that way you know when you get a little bit of frost that touches like a collard, that collard gets super sweet. These, yeah, you have some flexibility with these, but then summer have no flexibility. If there's any kind of frost that hits them, they don't have that ability to, like, you know, do sugar waters and stuff. I mean, they just the water in their cells, you know, freeze, and then they burst, and then these plants die. So these guys cannot, you know, survive on warm weather. There's not much wiggle room, but then cool weather, you do have some wiggle room. All right, so there's a question. Just FYI, lots of seed shops have been flooded with orders and delayed in shipping due to everything that's happening. For sure, yeah. I've been hearing that a lot lately too. That people are having, you know, troubles getting seeds. So just, you know, so maybe even like start ordering your seeds now, and then plan on, like, if you haven't got your cool weather seeds by now, yeah, you may not be able to get them unless you go to some kind of store, which I don't know if it's how possible that is right now with our situation. But yeah, you may have to wait until May to get a lot of these plants. Then direct seed versus seedling transplanting. So now, like, you know, you decide, like, you know, decide if you want to do a summer garden, a spring garden, fall, all those things. If you're a beginner garden, I recommend just do a summer garden. Just wait till May, get your things ready, and then run with it and just grow it until it dies. But spring and fall, I mean, it takes a little bit of planning. It's a little bit tricky in timings and things like that. So, but that's more for like second, third year, start slowly incorporating. But now that once you figure out, I'm going to do a summer garden, or I'm going to do a spring and a summer garden, now you got to figure out, decide what you want to plant, and then figure out which ones you can plant directly into the ground versus which ones you want to buy or grow your own seedling. So typically, like, the things you plant directly in the ground are your legumes, which those are nitrogen fixers that will actually suck nitrogen from the air and deposit it in little nodules in their roots that will slowly leach out and add nitrogen to your soil. So really great. Everyone should always grow dedicate a little section of your garden to peas and beans, like peas in spring and beans in summer. And then move that section, every year, move it to a different part of your garden so it re-fertilizes that, because it's actually fertilizing your garden. It's a pretty great crop. And then lettuces and mesclun, mix it, different kinds of lettuces. They don't transplant very well. You'll see a lot of these things in seedlings at nurseries. You got to decide if you want to spend the extra money, and they don't transplant very well. And a lot of these things, like cucurbits, like squashes and zucchinis, they just grow so quickly. You can buy a seedling if you want, but you're not going to gain that much. So, so if you're doing a lot of these, it's just more cost effective just to plant it yourself. And corn and okra and root vegetables do not transplant very well. So you will have some really tough times trying to transplant these crops. Just a heads up. But then everything else you want to plant as a seedling. If you're planting tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, kales, collards, things like that, you want to plant these things as big as possible seedlings, because that's going to maximize your production. You're going to get to actually ripe fruit a lot quicker, and then you're going to have a lot longer season, because again, our seasons are confined to our temperatures and our sunlight, amount of hours of sunlight we have, and the soil temperatures and things like that, and frost. So you only have these windows to grow these things. So you want to get a head start by having big seedlings to kind of run with. Quick question. How do you combat the Mexican bean beetle on bean plants? That's a good question. So we are going to have a pest class, but I don't think we actually talk about the Mexican bean beetle. I haven't heard about it, getting much of it in this area. And to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about that, but that's something I'll definitely research. I'll make a note of that. I'll research it, and I will include that in our pest class. And our pest class should be coming up in I think next week. So I'll definitely have some tips on that for next week for sure. Are you experiencing Mexican bean beetle in the DC area? What's Hoko? So we have another question. I have a spaghetti squash seedling now. Must I wait till warm? Yeah, squash is a warm weather plant, so you got to wait till mid-May. So just keep growing that thing. We'll talk about how to take care of it, how to pot it up if you need to, but you got to wait till mid-May. Oh, so Howard County, got you. So terrible infestation last season. Okay, yeah, I've never really seen it in the DC area, but for sure, I will make a note, and I will talk about that during our pest class. I just need to do a little research and talk to someone. I have some friends that do IPM and do are professional horticulturalists, so I'll get some tips from them too. Cool. So moving on. Let me take a quick note real quick to add that to the pest class. All right, so moving on. So you decide, figure out I'm going to do a summer season. I'm going to plant these things. These things I can direct seed. These things I can, I can plant seedlings. Now you want to. It's a good idea. You don't have to, but I mean, I just think for organizational sake, it's a good idea to create a planting calendar. So any kind of calendar will do. You can get one of these nice ones. You can just get a Word doc, whatever. But you want to kind of decide what things you want to plant, and then figure out when are you going to have to seed them indoors. When are you going to have to plant them outdoors. And then just map it out on the calendar so you don't have to remember all this stuff. So you can just look at your calendar and see, all right, May 10th is when I plan on, Mother's Day is when I plan on, planting my, crop. So spend some time. I mean, if you don't need exact dates, just looking down these general dates, like cool weather stuff, if you're planting them in indoor seedlings, you want to plant them February and March, and then plant them outside March and April. And then same with fall seedlings, you plant them in your house in July and August, and then plant them outside August, September. So there's generalizations to that. But if you want exact dates, it's a really great tool called Johnny Seed Select has this garden calculator. And basically you just need the last frost date in your area. So that I just looked that up is April 2nd for us right now. It changes every year. And for sure, it's not the official last frost date. There's actually only a 30% chance that this will actually be the last frost date. There's a good chance you'll have another frost later on. But it's just a good reference point to kind of for these like kind of farmers almanacs and calendars and stuff to create recommendation dates. So you take that April 2nd, you plug it into there, and then it tells you exactly when do I need to seed these indoors to grow seedlings, when I need to plant them outdoors and all that stuff. So you can get the exact date, but really, I think just having this the month is really important. And you can check out the last calendar, our last class. We talked a lot about soil temperatures. That's really what matters with like cool weather and warm weather things. So if you're doing a spring garden and you want to figure out exactly when you want to plant, you're going to need to get a soil thermometer and kind of test the soil out. And certain things like spinach and peas they can be planted in 35, 40 degree soil weather, but then like kale and collards need to be like 50, 60 degrees. So it's just like so you can do some planning if you want to get exact, or just be like sometime in March the soil temperature is going to be good and I plan on planting my plants sometime in March. So it's up to you how detail you want, but I definitely recommend just making a plan for yourself on when you're going to plant what, and it doesn't have to, you don't have to follow it, but it's just a good reference point. So there's one, why plant for fall seedlings in the house in July? Why not in pots outside? Because it's too hot, because your fall seedlings they don't do very well in the heat. So that way, you want to keep them indoors, where you can keep it, a little bit cooler, grow them in your basement, with dormant, temperatures. And then the hope is it starts cooling down around August, September, so you can actually plant these guys outside. And then it helps to actually get, when you're doing fall crops, to pick between, there's a lot of special varieties that will say spring crops and fall crops. And like a spring, cauliflower is more tolerant to frost as a baby, as opposed to a fall cauliflower is more tolerant to heat as a baby. So it's good to kind of like, if there is spring and fall, kind of follow that, because that'll help you out a little bit. And sometimes sometimes it's just too hot in August, so you may need to get some kind of shade covering or something just to keep it kind of cool. But that's the main point, is you don't want to like plant a lot of these things outdoors when it's like 100 degrees out, because they're not going to be too happy. All right. And then there's a bunch of these, like, Aussie runs all the school gardens. We have over 100 school gardens. They put together this really great planting calendar. So there's a bunch of calendars. Maryland Extension has a really great one. These are really great just to kind of figure out, if you don't want exact dates, just to kind of figure out, well, generally when do I plant what, and why. So it will help you. Any one of these calendars will help you out. Everyone, is a little bit different, just to understand that, there isn't exact science. A lot of these are estimates based on predicted temperatures and predicted weather throughout the year, but they're all pretty close, So all right, so now you got your plan out. You know where you're going to plant. You know when you're going to plant, whether you're going to direct seed or you're going to grow seedlings. And now it's time to start ordering some things. And this may change based on what's available. May change your plan somewhat. And some people look at their seed catalogs first and then like do all the planning. So you may want to do that. So it's all different orders. But so when you start going through these seed catalogs, and sometimes you can do a lot of these. You can go online too. Their catalogs are online. You can start seeing different kinds of there's a lot of different codes and things, so it takes a little while to kind of decipher what it is they're talking about. The big one is a lot of times they'll breed different plants to have disease resistance to certain things, like tomatoes, or to have more resistance to blights and wilts. So if you got a particular disease last year, maybe you want to look and see, find the varieties that are disease resistant, because they might, that disease might still be in your soil or might be around this year. A big one's heirloom. So heirloom is basically plants that were, it has to be old plants. So plants that were started before 1950, and they were, they might have been hybrid a long time ago, but they're pretty stable plants, and these are the ones like the crazy, like the black tomatoes and like the green tomato, all these different crazy varieties and stuff. They're really beautiful plants, but they're because they're heirloom, they're also open pollinated, which means when you take the seeds from one of these heirloom plants, and you could save those seeds, put them in the ground, and you'll get the same plant. So it's got very stabilized genes. It's not going to revert to different things, as opposed to a hybrid. A hybrid is when you take breed two different plants together and you create this like really awesome plant. My favorite hybrid is sun gold tomatoes. They're these like really delicious, like really sweet cherry tomatoes, and they're prolific. Like if you're looking for an easy plant that just produces a lot of fruit, sun golds are fantastic. But sun gold is a hybrid that they just recently created in the last I don't know, like 5-6 years maybe or something like that. If I take the seeds from a sun gold and I plant it in the ground, it's going to revert back to one of its parents. So it's not going to be exactly the same sun gold. It's going to be because it doesn't have stabilized genes yet. These stabilized genes and heirlooms, I mean, that's happened over centuries and centuries, of these plants, that just stabilize themselves. And hybrids are usually more newer plants that were just made, and the genes aren't stabilized, and they will revert back. So you can't really save seeds with hybrids. You can only save seeds with heirlooms and open pollinated plants. And then there's some other things that you probably won't see, like Landris. It's about some local varieties and things that are tolerant to certain conditions in the area. It's like coated and pelted. It's like if you're doing a farm and you need to load these seeds into like machines, seeding machines. They coat them so they're more uniform, so they load better. And treated with fungicides and insecticides. Don't deal with any of these things. Mainly, you're just looking for do you want an heirloom or do you want a hybrid? Kind of those are the two main things, and look for disease resistance. Question, are sun golds easy to find? They usually are. I have no idea what to expect right now, especially with the seeds, with how hard it's been to get seeds. Normally, like every local garden store has some kind of sun gold seedlings. They're a big one. I know like 3 Part Harmony grows a lot of them. They do a lot of seedling sales. They're the only for-profit farm, actual like in the ground farm. There's some like rooftop ones and aqua, and microgreens and stuff. But they're the only for-profit in DC. They're located up by Catholic University area. But they usually grow a lot of sun golds and then sell them at Ace Hardwares and things like that. So they're usually pretty easy to find. But like I said, I mean, it's going to be a tough season. So it might be a good idea if you can get the seeds to get some of those seeds and grow them yourself. But all right, and so DC, and then seed sources. So trying to find your seed sources. So this is the Doug Network is a volunteer organization that we created several years ago, just to kind of capture all the great resources, initiatives, and organizations around urban ag and food security in DC. So if you're ever looking for like where I buy compost, where I volunteer, where can I do whatever, check that out. And there's a whole link on garden supplies. And there's I think like 40 or 50 different seed companies. Most of them generally like I said, like stick to the closer ones, like Southern Exposure and Johnny Seed Select and Felco and different ones. But you could definitely like peruse ones. There's a lot of specialty ones if you're looking for special kinds of seeds. But yeah, definitely check that out. And then also a lot of these companies, we're going to talk about germination rates a little bit later. But germination rate is like the percentage, the likelihood that your seeds are actually going to germinate, which actually start growing. And after a while, seeds, they have a shelf life. So every year that chance of them actually germinating goes down a little bit. So the germination rates for new seeds should be like 98% or higher. I mean, they should, all your new seeds you buy, you should expect every one of them to sprout. There might be 1 or 2 out of a packet that may not, but you should expect them all to start germinating. But then next year that's going to go down, and then maybe you can expect maybe like 60-70% of them to germinate, and then the next year even lower and lower, and usually about 5 years they're just not that good anymore. So the general idea is like when your germination rate goes down, if you're using second year seeds, you may want to put 2 or 3 seeds per hole, and then third year seeds maybe 3 or 4 seeds per hole, just to make sure that something comes up. And then if 2 of them sprout, it's really you just thin them out. It's pretty easy. But with a lot of seed companies, so they can't sell second year seeds. They can only sell first year seeds legally. So they usually have warehouses full of like all the leftover second year seeds. If you're with a nonprofit or a school, or if you're willing to just pay the shipping, a lot of times they'll send you free seeds. So now's a great time to kind of reach out and just see if any of these companies have second year seeds that they're willing to give away. And there's a lot. Here's a couple of seed exchanges and plant exchanges, like the Washington Gardener. She does a really amazing magazine, Kathy Gents, online magazine around gardening in the area, and she hosts a lot of seed exchanges. There's a lot of times the issue where people plant up all their crops and they'll have leftover seeds, so they'll get together and just kind of share all their seeds. I don't know with social distancing that how that's going to work, but I know she does have a lot of extra seeds right now. If you can, if you want to send me an email, I can send you her info, and she's like looking to give those. I think she'll mail them away if you pay the postage or something like that. So and there's also seedling exchanges too. So around like probably early June, people, I mean, it's a good idea to plant extra seedlings in case some of them die or if you want to give some of them away. But a lot of people around like June have all this extra seedlings, so there'll be seedling exchanges too and things like that. So if you follow the Doug Network newsletter, we always promote all that stuff. You'll hear about it, and then just like saving seeds. So this is a really fantastic book. I mean, it does take a little bit of knowledge to actually save seeds and a little bit of planning. Some of them are, it's different techniques. Like tomato seeds, you have to like let them just like ferment in their own juices for a while until they deteriorate the outside protective coating, and then you can start using them. So there's different methods for everything. We used to do a seed saving class a while ago, but the person that did it left DC. So we're trying to find another person. But if you're into that, we have these books in our tool library. Tool library is closed for now, but I mean, hopefully by fall, when you need to start saving seeds, it'll be back open, so you can borrow this book if you want to learn about that. And then if you have extra seeds in packets, just store them in a cool, dark, dry place like jars, envelopes. Some people keep them in freezers. I don't think it's because you have to keep them cold. It's just it's a cool, dark place, dry place to keep seeds. All right, so now that, we hopefully have some kind of plan of what we're going to grow. We figure out, we placed our orders. Maybe we have to wait a little while, but we placed our orders with our seedlings, seeds, and now we can start working on actually, setting up, and growing our seeds and actually creating our growing stations. So the first thing you want to know is like if you're planning on growing indoors, is you need to find a place, and there's a couple of different considerations on where to go. But you need to understand what is going to happen in this place. The most important thing to understand is water and electricity. You do not want to have this place any close to any kind of open outlets, or if you do have open outlets, get the right fuse boxes or whatever, the shut off fuse boxes, or just get plug up those outlets, holes or something. But you just want to be very careful about electricity and water. So that should be your first thought. It's just making sure that's it's a safe area. A lot of times I really recommend if you have like a sink, like a utility sink, or if you don't mind in your kitchen sink, it's a good idea to water your seedlings in the sink, and that's really great because you leave them in there, you let them dry out a little bit, or at least like they're not dripping anymore, and then you bring them back to wherever you have, so that way you don't have spilling water everywhere. But a lot of people can't do that, so they'll have to water in place. They'll have to get a watering can and bring that to so that's why, I mean, if you have open electrical outlets and stuff, it's not a good idea, or at least cover those outlets, or figure out a safer solution. And then like good light. So if you're doing a window, I really love these. I've been seeing a lot of these lately. A lot of people will grow in south facing windows. It has to be a south facing windows. I mean, like in the east and west, because our sun rises in the east, travels throughout the south sky and then sets in the west. And east and west, you could like grow herbs and stuff, but it's really hard. Like if you want to grow seedlings, you need to have a south facing window. You need to capture as much light as possible. But I've been seeing these people, they make these shelves. Normally people just put them on the little windowsill, but then I've seen people making shelves where they're capturing a whole bunch of sunlight. I think that's a really cool idea. So light, make sure you have a lot of light, or if you don't have a south facing window, you're probably going to have to set up some kind of light stand. So we'll talk about that, in a second, but look for some kind of shelving or some kind of corner of the room or basement where you can actually set up some lights. And convenience, if it's out of sight, if it's like down in your basement, you never go in your basement, might forget to water a couple of days. So that's why it's good to kind of have some place where you're going to walk by it and you're going to remember it and you're going to keep an eye on it if possible. It's not always possible in all of our living situations. So and also, like, oh, I forgot to mention height. Like, I grow a lot of seedlings on the ground, and it's kind of it's a little bit harsh to bend over all the time. So if you can get it up off the ground on a table or a shelf or something like that, your back's going to love you so much more. So definitely think about, I mean, I only do it on the ground because I don't have like a table area where I can use, but and then the last part is like pests. Something, there are some, like, fruit flies and stuff that can get in. You want to be really careful when you're bringing soil in or buying plants, that you always want to check the top of the soils, make sure there's no larvae or eggs or anything. You just want to be careful when you bring, but I think the worst pests are pets. I mean, this is my seedling setup a couple years ago, and they were just doing horrible. I couldn't figure out why. And then I came down one day, and my cat was literally just treating them like a litter box, and kneading his paws into the soil and stuff. So you wanna, if you've got cats or things like that, you definitely wanna make sure pick a spot that's where they're gonna, cats love to just kind of hang out on top of seedlings. Just a FYI. So pick a spot that a cat can't get into. And then, so this is your basic setup. We're going to dive into each one of these categories and talk about, the specifics. But generally, so let's say you don't have a south-facing window, or if you do, and you just, it's a little bit hard. We'll talk about tips about, south-facing window. But if you want to have healthier seedlings, I would recommend actually buying light installations, light setups. And so essentially, what you're looking for is you want to get some kind of a full spectrum of light. So lights. They have there's a whole spectrum of warm to cool of lights, and some light bulbs have the whole spectrum, like LED. Well, not all LED, but ones that say like plant lights, aquarium lights, grow lights, things like that. Anything that has to do with has any of that stuff will have a full spectrum. So you just need one of those light bulbs, and your plant will get all that light, because your light uses cool and warm light at different parts of the growth stages. So if you just have a cool light, it may sprout, but it won't get much farther when it needs that warm light. But if you can't find a full spectrum light, you can just buy one cool and one warm light, and then just get a fixture that has a double light fixture, and just put both of them, and that will definitely, that will be enough. That will be your full spectrum. You'll be covered on that. So fixtures, you just want to make sure, like, depending on what light bulb, pick your light bulbs out first, and then go to the fixture aisle and make sure that they not all make sure the fixture is designed for if you're doing fluorescent, they come in T sizes, T1, 5, T8, whatever. So you just want to make sure it matches up with your bulbs. And then it's nice to have, you want them to be adjustable. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but you want your lights to be, especially if they're fluorescent, they want them to be between 4 and 6 inches from your seedlings at all times. So if your seedlings start growing up, you want to be able to move that light up with your seedlings. That's for 2 reasons. One is fluorescents are a little bit warm, so if a plant actually touches the fluorescent bulbs, it starts growing into it, it could get a little bit fried. And also, you don't want fluorescent lights to be too far away, because the light deteriorates over distance. You start losing a lot of that chlorophyll so in the light. So so if you have it too far away, you're going to have really leggy seedlings that aren't going to be very healthy. And that's different with LEDs. LEDs, it doesn't really, it can travel a lot farther without deterioration. So if you have an LED light, you can definitely keep that a lot farther from your seedlings. I know in the greenhouses, there's a lot of their LED lights will be way up on the top of the greenhouse, but that it's able to travel a lot farther. But I use like chains, I'll use, and then I'll just, as my plants grow, I'll just, take out a link in the chain, like maybe once a week, just to keep that the right distance. And we'll talk about knots and stuff that you can use and different ways to adjust, but you want it to be able to adjust it somewhat. And then, timer, definitely get a timer, because you need to have a resting period for your seedlings. Generally, depending on what you're growing and how far you want to push them, it's anywhere between 12 to 18 hours seedlings need of sunlight. So you know, and then you get these like, I mean, they're like just a couple dollars. You just press in like, you know, this is like one giant button, and you just press in like the timing that you want, and then it will shut off when it, you know, so it's really easy to operate. It will shut off your timer. And yeah, just definitely, you don't want to be shutting, you know, manually shutting off your lights. You're going to just lose track of this stuff. So get like a cheap timer, and some kind of stand. We'll talk about all different kinds of stands, you know, but you need some kind of like stand just to hold that fixture up, whether it's like it's a shelving, then you just let, you know, attach the lights to the top of each shelf, or some kind of PVC structure, or like I use like cinder blocks and a shower rod, and then I just hang my lights from that shower rod. And then additional equipment like fans and seed trays and stuff. We'll talk all about that today. So let's dive a little bit deeper into some of these things. Lights. So a big thing, light options. So there's a lot of different light options out there. Like I covered already. Like you want to look for, you know, full spectrum, grow plant, aquarium bulbs, things like that. If you're doing fluorescent is generally cheaper, but it just doesn't last as long as LEDs. It's not as efficient either. You're going to be paying more in the long run on your electric bills. But if you're doing, you know, if you got a limited budget, definitely, you know, check out your fluorescents. They come in different sizes: T2, 4, 5, and the smaller the number, the smaller the diameter. So just depends. You really, I mean, it really depends on your setup. I should have a sign, you know, that's another thing. I should make a slide about like measurements and stuff. But I mean, one light will cover one full spectrum light will cover a decent amount of seedlings. But if you got a lot of seedlings, you know, you may want to think, you know, adding like 2 lights, 3 lights. You know, like my wife has this like fixture that you can put 8 lights in, and she grows a lot of stuff underneath that. So it's really, but I mean, really, like if you're just growing like, you know, a couple trays, like 1 light should do fine. So, and then think about, you know, fixtures and light timers, and then LED, like, so I made this slide years ago, and there's been a lot of advancements in LED. Usually, like, if you wanted an LED, you needed to get this like crazy looking, you know, like a box, and it's super expensive. And but now you can get LED, you know, bulbs that look just like the fluorescent. They're a lot cheaper, so you can play around with it. Just make sure that they're full spectrum, and that they have, you know, or they're grow lights or things like that. So they have become a lot cheaper since I made these slides. I just haven't spent much time. I'm still using fluorescent. I haven't spent much time. I mean, my house has, you know, LED light bulbs, but my grow lights are fluorescent. So just yeah, definitely do some shopping around, do some research. But then if you don't want to do these lights and you just want to do a south-facing window, there's a couple things you could do, like setting up reflective barriers, because it's hard to get those 12 hours of sunlight from just from a south-facing window. Especially, I mean, if it was like in July, for sure you can get that, but in the spring and the fall, that sunlight, you just don't have that many hours. So you got to think about ways to like magnify the glass of the sunlight and reflect it. You know, having like, you know, reflective backing to the back, just so the light can just bounce, you know, on both sides. So not only is it getting 6 hours in the front, but it's also getting 6 hours in the back, and that's really going to double the amount of chlorophyll, and your seedlings are going to be a lot happier. If you have a drafty window, though, you definitely want to get some of that weather stripping, you know, plastic, you know, that cover. It's really easy, it's cheap, it covers your window, just so, because your seedlings aren't going to be happy if you have a drafty window. And a lot of times, though, no matter what you do, your seedlings get a little bit leggy, meaning they get like kind of tall and they look like they may fall over. And they're kind of they're reaching. Whenever you see like seedlings that aren't just growing straight up, but like reaching to a side, that means they're not getting enough sunlight. So they're reaching towards that window to try to get more sunlight. So one thing you could do if that's happening is just kind of rotate your seedlings, you know, 180 degrees, like every couple of days, just so they kind of it trains them to go back and forth, and that's going to make a much stronger, you know, seedling with a stronger root ball if you do that. All right, so what kind of seed trays for potting up? All right, we're going to have a whole slide on seed trays, so I'll show you that stuff in a second. But let's just get through a couple more of the equipment stuff. Equipment stand. So again, like if you're trying to do like some kind of stand, I mean, you could do a lot of DIY ones. I do cinder blocks and stuff. I used to have a foosball table in my basement. So I would actually hang the lights underneath the foosball tables and hang them by chains on the handles, and then just have all my seedlings underneath the table. So you can do like really creative things like that. You could buy PVC pipes, and it's just like it's just like Legos, you know, kind of putting them together. You get a special kind of glue that glues them together. You know, you get I really like the chains. If you can get like, you know, these metal wire fence shelves and just like hang chains from them, and as the seedlings grow higher, you can move the chains upward. Or if you don't like chains, you can also do knots. I used to do a lot of like wilderness therapy stuff and a lot of backpacking, so I've learned a lot of knots, and this is like fantastic knot. It's called a taut line. It's pretty easy to learn. I'm sure there's some YouTubes who kind of you can watch it out. And the thing about it, once you tie it, you can, you know, slide it up and down. It's a very strong knot too, but it slides really well, and that will adjust it, you know, making it the length of the rope longer or shorter. So you can definitely get very creative with a lot of these things. Um, and then reflection. So if you're, especially if you're growing from a window, you want to reflect that sunlight to just increase the amount of chlorophyll your plants are getting. You can also do that. I mean, a lot of people have grow systems and stuff. They'll grow them in these whole, you know, like um, uh, these whole reflective things. So they'll have a light, and the light just bounces back all over the place, and then those plants just get an enormous amount of chlorophyll. But if you're going to use reflective, there's different kinds of surfaces you can use, like foil. Tin foil is fine. You can even paint, you know, some white reflective paint, not glossy paint on some cardboard. But really, the best thing to get is Mylar. They have like the best ratings for reflection, so they're really good at reflecting a lot of chlorophyll back into the plants. And if you want to get free you can't right now, but hopefully this summer we'll have some more marathons. And if you go to the end of marathon, these are all like those fire blankets that they give, you know, runners, you know, just to kind of warm up for a little bit, and then they have giant piles that they throw away or hopefully recycle. So if you definitely just go to the end of a marathon, and you can just grab all you want. I mean, no one's going to say anything, and that's like the best reflective material that you can use. All right, then seed trays. All right, so seed trays. So there's a lot of different types of seed trays you can get. I mean, you can do a lot of DIY seed trays, but I'm going to talk about first the things that you can buy first. And typically, so, I mean, the terminology, everyone throws around the terminology all over the place, and it's different. And even I might be saying it wrong, but so just know that things are a little bit different when you talk to people at nurseries. Um, so there's two different kinds of seed trays, things that you the actual things that you plant your soil and your seedlings in. This one's called the seed pack. They're called packs, cell packs, and they're breakaway. They're packs of 6. They're usually typically 2-inch by 2-inch. You know, so they're nice size. Like, I mean, if you grow a seedling in there, that's a nice size to actually put in your garden. I mean, you could get. I mean, it's great to. The next size up is like 4-inch, you know, containers, and those, I mean, those make great seedlings, but I mean, you just have to start really early for that stuff. But these are typical what people use. They break away. You can even tear them off into individual. They have holes on the bottom. You can push when you're popping them out. But then there's another thing called plug flats, and this is if you want to grow a lot of things, you know, early. So the idea is that you get these things that sometimes they have like 96 holes or things, and even smaller ones, and you fill them up and you just grow them. But and the idea is like you can start them off, you know, with not much space. You grow them out, and you can I mean, once there's a healthy root ball, you can plant them directly into the ground, or you can from there you can pot them up into bigger containers and kind of just work your way into bigger and bigger containers. So definitely these are kind of like the two starting options. And then but by themselves, they're pretty, like this one's really flimsy. So you want to get some kind of tray for them, and these are called 10-20 trays. You can either have these completely open, you know, called daisy trays. So that tons of drainage is fine. I mean, if you're doing it in a place in, like, you know, in a corner of your room, you know, where you have to be really careful watering, you don't want to overflow, then definitely get, you know, you can get these other trays. Some of them still have little holes in them, and you can also order ones that don't have holes, and they'll actually capture any excess water. So definitely, yeah, if water is an issue, like you don't have a sink to water your plants, think about getting trays that don't have holes, so you can capture any excess water that runs off from these guys when you water. So you definitely want to have a tray and some kind of, like, you know, plug system. But then and then they make all different kinds of things, like self-watering trays that have these special bottom things where the water, you put water in the bottom, and it actually gets sucked up by the soil, so it waters in the bottom. They work all right. I don't know. I don't really use them. And then the humidity domes. These are really great for germination, just to get your seeds started. But then after they germinate, you want to always take the humidity dome off, because then, or else you're going to get some fungal issues and stuff on your leaves. But that's good to help start germinating. But normally you don't need the humidity dome. And then, seed starting ones, they make these really great, like peat or coconut coir. We'll talk about the difference between those two in a second. Some of them are like dehydrated. There's these little cups, and you add water, and it like starts expanding into this root ball, and then you put the seed right in there. And then you could plant the whole thing itself, like all of it. The outside paper and everything deteriorates in your garden. So it's pretty cool. I just don't have a lot of experience. I always just, do this kind of seedlings. But I know a lot of people that do this stuff, and they have some, success. And then you could definitely, make your own, like, paper towel rolls, fill them up with soil, works really well. Eggshell cartons, for really small, like plug-like, things. There's a lot of different DIY ones that you can use. You just want to make sure it has drainage. It's not capturing it, because it's really important. Drainage is really important, because the roots of these seedlings are really delicate. They need oxygen, even though like the top of the plant is sucking carbon dioxide. The roots actually suck oxygen, and if there's too much water for too long, it pushes out the oxygen, and you start having root rot. And that's the number one way that you kill your seedlings. So you want to have really good drainage, so you don't have root rots. And then there's a really cool thing, soil blocks. We actually have this in the tool share when it opens up, if you ever want to try it. But you make a right mixture of soil. You need to have some kind of compost in it, so it has some kind of like gooey structure to it. And water it really good, and then you just you shove these like these soil blocks into the soil, and then there's a clamp, and you release it, and it comes out in these like perfect little blocks. You just plop the seed in there, and then just add a little soil to the top. And those are really great for like a high, if you're doing a lot of production and stuff. And then you could just plop that whole block into straight into the garden when it's ready. You don't have to worry about plastic and removing things, and like toilet paper rolls. You definitely need to remove those rolls before you plant them in. So there's a lot of different ways. You can do seedlings and trays and things like that. So it's really up to you how you want to do it. And then planting media. So it's really important. This is, what the soil that we're going to be using is really what we call soil free, meaning like soil. You don't want to just dig up a bunch of soil from your garden or from your yard and plant seedlings. You want very intentional soil that's you're going to drain really, really well. Because again, like that's the number one issue why your seedlings will die, is because it's it's just not enough drainage, and you have not enough oxygen into the soil, and your roots will rot. So it's really important to find. You could do store-bought ones. Look for transplanting mix, seedling mix, indoor mix, growing mix, all those different things. Potting mix. If you can't find anything, potting mix is great for containers, but it's not as drainable or whatever. It has a little bit more nutrients and stuff, which is good, but it's possible to get one of these mixes. Some of these, the two main choices that people get in growing industries is they get either this pro mix that's mainly peat moss, but it has some like mycorrhizae and nutrients and stuff, and then coconut coir. And why a lot of people are trying to get away from peat moss is peat moss. It comes from these peat bogs in like Canada and Finland and Ireland and a couple other places. And it's one, it's a non-renewable resource, so we're going to eventually run out of it. And it's a pretty you had to dig it all up and dry it out and kill the moss, and it's a pretty invasive process, actually, excavating all this stuff. And at the same time, we're starting to realize that these peat bogs actually suck a lot of carbon out of the air. So by destroying these peat bogs, we're not doing any favors with climate change right now. So a lot of people are trying to find alternatives. There are a couple alternatives. The biggest one, though, is this coconut coir. It's basically like the husk, shredded the husk of coconuts. And those are really fantastic. You can get them in blocks. You just tear them apart, kind of water them, a little bit, and they're just as good as peat moss. They do have a bit of a carbon footprint because, they're coming from, far away, but So is peat moss too, to be truthful. But there are a lot of people who are trying to work on local growing medias, like rice husk shells. So all rice has these little shells that they have to, kind of husk, and they grind them up. So some people are trying to work on that. So there's different variety things you can do, but these are your two main options that you can find most places. And I definitely recommend look for the coconut coir first. Only get the peat if you have to. And then OMRI, so this is Organic Materials Review Institute. So always look for this kind of thing, on like don't see, but most of these things will have OMR, will have the stamp on this, will have the stamp, and that just means they're certified organic. So you definitely want to look for those stamps, and most of these things will have them. Then DIY, you can make your own amendments. I'll show you a couple of recipes for that. And then you can also amend it, like adding like mycorrhizae. It's just like beneficial symbiotic fungus that it's really good for like perennial things and woody things like trees, because what it does is it attaches to these trees, and all plants, especially perennial plants, they have what's called exudates, where they suck carbon from the air, and they use a lot of that to grow their body, their plant parts, but then they release a lot of it as like sugars and carbs into the soil that feeds like soil biology. That's why having perennials in your garden will make your soil a lot more healthier, because it's just this constant. It's actually feeding the soil, what's called a soil food web. But then also if it's mycorrhizae, if there's anything in there, it'll actually attach to these roots, and they'll feed off the exudates. And in exchange for that, they'll actually extend the roots' capacity to suck up water and nutrients, and they'll actually feed water and nutrients to your plants. And there's even a lot of crazy studies about how they'll attach to multiple different plants, and they'll actually gauge on which plant needs water and nutrients the most, and they'll move nutrients and stuff to different plants. And it's a pretty cool thing. So you can actually buy that, as a powder. A lot of these pro mixes have mycorrhizae already in them, or you can, Then compost teas, we'll talk about how to make compost teas in the compost class, but it's a great a probiotic spray that will add some beneficial bacteria that will help it with any kind of diseases and things. And then like light organic, we do fertilize. I'll show you a good fertilizer to use in a second. But making your own, soil media. So there's two really great recipes. One is using either perlite, vermiculite, or sand. So these are things that are going to build soil structures. And allow for like drainage and things like that. So like vermiculite is like heated mica. Perlite is whenever you ever bought a plant and it looks like these little styrofoam balls are in there. That's perlite. It's actually volcanic glass that's been like super heated. Or some kind of like coarse. You want to look as coarse as possible sand, because you want the jagged edges, because you want these things are actually going to create drainage. And then you add your peat moss or coconut coir, and that's the retention. That's the things that are going to lightly hold on to water and nutrients, but not too much like normal topsoil. And then then there's another one that's like same recipe, but you add a little bit of compost in there, particularly if you have vermicompost. Vermicompost is compost made from worms, and that is the all-time best compost ever, because worms have like this amazing probiotic stuff in their stomachs. So when they actually create vermicompost, which is basically just worm poop, when they create that stuff, it's full of the most amazing probiotic stuff. And so if you make it's really expensive, and and if you have worm systems, it takes a while to create. It's a slow composting process, but it's definitely worth it. The compost is just amazing. If you add a little bit of that to your soil medium, you're going to have some really happy seedlings. So now that you got your trays, you got your soil media. Now it's about how do we actually get this started and get them going. So some people recommend soaking seeds. This will help germination rates. I don't typically do that, but it can't hurt. I would just research. Some seeds like to be soaked and some seeds don't. So just like look, Google which seeds if you're planning on doing that, and make sure to soak them. It's just an extra step that I don't really want to think about, but definitely, yeah. If you want to help your germination, do a little research on what to soak. But then like what you do with your media, it's good to like kind of dump your media into like a plastic tote or like bucket, and then lightly add water, because you want that media to be thoroughly moist before you're putting it into the tray. So make sure it's like moist, mix it up, and it's nice, and then it shouldn't be dripping, but it should be moist, all parts of it. And then you kind of just lightly load your trays up, and you don't want to pat it down too much. What I do is I'll just hold that tray full of soil, and I'll like drop it like 6 inches a couple times, just to kind of like lightly plat it down. And then after you water it the first time, it will really it will start settling. But unless you have some kind of media that's just not settling on its own, maybe, and then just lightly pat it in. But you don't want to, like, again, you don't want it too, you want to ensure drainage, so you don't want to tamper it down too much. And then we do what's called like a dipple, where you kind of just get your finger and just make a little indent hole into each one of them, and try to put your hand on the side of the tray so it's kind of uniform. So it's but you just do these little dipples. Seeds, you can read the seed packets and they'll tell you exactly how deep to plant your seeds, but generally, like, you want to plant the seed like twice as deep as it is wide. So if you have little tiny carrots, those things are you're going to plant those seeds on the surface. But if you have things like beans and corn, you need to plant those a little bit deeper. And so a lot of times when you have these little seeds, they're so hard to deal with. So my method, what I use is I get like a business card, and I'll fold it in half, and just and then at a 90-degree angle, and I'll pour my seeds in there and take a pencil and just kind of move one out at a time. And that seems to work really well, as opposed to trying to like hand pick each one of these little tiny seeds and then pluck them down into it. It's a nightmare. So then a couple times, after you put them in, you just want to sprinkle some extra soil on top. Again, don't pat it down. So you don't want it, you want to ensure you have good drainage. So just sprinkle more soil on top of that seed in that dimple, just to kind of hold it up or cover it. And then water really thoroughly. I mean, that's a really important thing. You don't want to just do a light water. You want to get a really thorough watering. And then you want to do that every time you water your seedlings. So that's why it's really nice to have a sink. You can just bring your seedlings over, turn on the sink, and just like, water until you start seeing, water come out from the bottom. But if you're doing it by hand, if you have a watering can, just make sure, give it a couple seconds. Like, don't just like lightly water. You want to get, a lot of times that water will stay on the surface and it will never get down into where the roots are. So you want to give it a good, thorough watering. But you only want to do that if you have good drainage, or else you're gonna, so that's why it's important to have really good drainage. And then bottom heat. So we'll talk about that in a second. But to actually germinate, so bottom heat. Sometimes, so you need certain temperatures to germinate. I think I don't know if I think I have a slide in there with it. If not, my last PowerPoint has the germination temperature charts. But so it's good to have it in some kind of, if you keep your house like, it's great if you can keep your house at 70 degrees, but a lot of people don't keep it that much. So if you don't want to heat your entire house, just find a heating source, like an old refrigerator. The tops get warm, or like get heating pads and stuff like that. Or like just keeping it somewhere where it's somewhat warm, and then that will help germinate it. Then once it's germinated, you don't have to keep the warmth. You can move it anywhere. So there's a couple questions. Just one. Is all potting mix soil free? I don't know about, I think so. I don't know about potting mix for sure, but like seedling mix, and like, so for sure, transplanting, seedling, indoor, growing mix, these are all soil free. I think most potting mixes are soil free, but definitely, double check that. Read it, just the contents before you buy a potting mix. All right, we'll talk a little bit more about bottom heats and stuff like that, and heating pads in a second. Again, like back of your seed packets should tell you how deep, if you want. So you can definitely follow some of these instructions from the back. And then, we talked a little bit about germination rates too. So again, first year seeds, 1 seed per hole, but if it's like second year seeds, maybe 2 per hole, third year, 3 per hole, and like, up until like 5 years or so. And then after about 5 years, you can still try them, but I usually throw my seeds away after that point. All right, so germination. So we talked. So you got your tray all planted. You know, it's got soil in it. You got your seeds in there. But how do you get it to actually sprout and germinate? And so the most important thing, you got to give it water. You keep it in a warm place. Like depending on what your seeds are, if you're doing any kind of warm weather, if you're doing like, which is what you will be doing right now, if you're doing tomatoes and peppers and stuff, you need it to be at least 70 degrees to sprout. So again, you can do like heating pads are great, but once they're sprouted, I would always take the heating pad out because it dries the soil out quicker. So you have to water more if you keep it on the heating pad. Top of refrigerator, you know, humidity domes are great. A lot of these seeds, the more humid, they sprout really well in humidity. So having some kind of humidity dome on top will help it sprout. You can make, you know, DIY ones, you know, put plastic bags and stuff over it. But as soon as you see it sprout, you know, you want to take this dome off because, or else it's going to, that humidity is going to cause a lot of fungal issues for the tops of the plants. And then light, even though it doesn't need light, a lot of times light can trigger the growth or it can start the growth. You don't need like, you know, full sunlight or grow lights, just maybe keep it by a window or something, just something to kind of help, you know, yeah, get it going. But most seeds, you know, they'll merge within a week or two. Some are a lot longer. I think it's like parsley takes like 3 or 4 weeks. Some, you know, but yeah, most of them, if they haven't, you know, sprouted by, you know, 2 weeks, you might want to think about, you know, reassessing, are you doing something wrong? Or if you have a couple of them sprout and then other ones haven't sprout, they usually sprout, you know, within the same, you know, within a day or two, you know. So if you have half of these sprout and the other half don't, you may want to reseed those holes just to get, you know, because they might not be sprouting. Okay, another question. What does soil-free actually mean? So soil, it's really important that we separate soil from compost, from growing media. Soil is topsoil. It's like the broken down over thousands of years. It's broken down rocks and stuff and magma and whatever, you know, and it creates that soil. Soil, there's nothing like soil. I mean, it has that structure. Plants love it. It can, you know, absorb, you know, it has a combination of clay particles, sand particles, and loam, depending on, you know, and so that's a very unique thing. And then we have like compost is like amendment that you add to soil to kind of add nutrition and soil structure and stuff like that. And then we have grow media that does not have any clay, sand, or loam particles. What it does have instead is this artificial kind of well-drained soil. So it's like you know, peat moss or coconut coir or, you know, perlite or things like a mixture of that stuff. So it doesn't actually have sand or clay in it. And that's really important because sand and, you know, clay, it's which is especially in DC, you find clay in almost all soils. It has bad drainage, so your seedlings are probably not going to survive in clay. Will we have humidity issues with a cold frame? So if you're growing in cold frames, that's a great way to start seedlings. I've done that before at different gardens, especially if you want to grow outdoors. What cold frame is, it's like a mini greenhouse that's probably maybe like 2 feet tall and has the top opens up. The main thing with that is you want to every day or as much as possible. So you can't. I mean, some people can't just do it every day, but you want to open it up during the day. You know, even if it's just for like 10, 15 minutes. You know, just allow the humidity to escape. And then you close that at night, and the whole idea is, or a couple hours before night. So the whole idea is it's like a mini greenhouse. It captures the heat during the day, and it will keep your seedlings, you know, and things warm throughout the nighttime, in theory. And not everything will survive in cold frames, but I've grown a lot of great seedlings in cold frames. But you just want to have that you know, an hour a day, if possible. Just open that up, just to let, or else you're going to have some really bad humidity issues, and you'll start having a lot of fungal stuff. Cool. All right, there we go. Soil temperature. So this is a good indicator. I mean, there's a lot of different, you know, maps and stuff out there. A lot of different opinions on what temperatures and stuff. But I mean, for the most part, these are germination rates. Like things like spinach and peas can germinate at really cold, like 35 degrees, like lettuces. But then like things like peppers and tomatoes need 60, 65 degrees. In general, like 70 degrees is your safe bet. Everything will germinate at 70 degrees, no matter what it is. But certain things will germinate before that. Mainly your cool weather crops. So if you want to, having a soil thermometer, if you want to get exact, like especially if you're doing like cool weather garden, like a spring garden, you want to kind of monitor your soil, so you can, temperature, so when you can start planting different things. So it's a good idea. I mean, these things are pretty cheap, soil thermometers, and it's a great way to kind of, monitor that. Yeah, so there's a good, indicator. Cool weather things like 35 to 80, warm weather 60 to 95. So. All right, and then post germination. Let's say you were able to get the decent temperatures, had enough humidity, so now you got all these things. And a lot of times these seedlings will grow without all these like humidity domes and proper temperature. I mean, things just learn that they just grow. They want to grow, but these are things just to kind of help with your efficiency and stuff. But post germination. So here's some things that you can start doing. So once these seedlings start coming out, that's when you start seeing leaves. You need to immediately start giving it some light, because most seeds have enough energy to get to their second leaves, which is their first true leaves. The first leaves that come out, they're called cotyledons. They all look weird. You don't know what it is, and then the second leaf is when you start seeing they're like, oh, that's a kale plant, that's a carrot, so that's called your first true leaf. So at that point, the seed is going to run out of energy. It doesn't have any energy to keep on growing. So, and most of your soil medias don't have a whole lot, unless you mixed in some kind of compost into it. It doesn't have a whole lot of nutrition. So that's when you need to start fertilizing them at that point. And I mean, you don't need to fertilize a lot, like half dosage, maybe once a week, if that, maybe once a month. It's not like, you don't need to go crazy with fertilizers, but a really great fertilizer, because there are a lot of different fertilizers out there. This is one, I talk about this one all throughout class, just because it's kind of a no-brainer, because it's called Neptune's Harvest. It's got liquid fish, which is a macronutrient, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. But then it has all these micronutrients, like from seaweed fertilizer. So it's got a little bit of everything, and it's very low dosage. So you don't ever, you want to stay away from these high or inorganic fertilizers, Miracle-Gros, because it's just going to have a lot of unhealthy growth. So what you would do is you just pour, there's little scales where you pour, like when you're fertilizing your garden, you would pour like a cup into a watering can, and then fill it up with water, and then water it. But even like seedlings, you want to do half dosage. So just pour a little bit into a watering can, and then water your seedlings. And like you probably don't even need to do it more than once, but you can do it once a week or once every other week, if you like. But just to give it a little bit after the first seed, the first real leaves start popping up. And then you need to have, move it to light, start getting light, take the humidity domes off, or any kind of covering, take that off, get the lights, 4 to 6 inches from the plants. And then, watering. So watering is really tricky. It's not tricky once you get the hang of it, but the idea with watering, you just don't want to over water. But you start out watering every day. But the idea is you want to eventually eventually maybe go to like every other day. The ultimate idea is you want the seedlings to kind of dry out a little bit. They don't need to get completely dry, but just have them dry out a little bit, and then you water them. So a lot of that is just going to be like, just touch this, put your finger in the corner of one of these trays, and try to understand the moisture levels, because everyone's situation dries out a little bit easier. But you don't want, if it's still really wet, don't re-water it. You want test the soil with your finger, and then just make sure if it's really wet still, like put your finger like an inch into that soil. If it's still really wet, don't water it. You want to wait till some dries out and then water it again, because if you let it dry out, not too much, but if you let it dry out for barely, what happens is that water dries out and oxygen will come back in, and that's what's going to feed your roots. So I know it sounds a little tricky. It's not quite. The main thing is you just don't want to like overwater it. You know, if the soil is already wet, don't water it again. If you're like on a daily schedule and the soil's already wet, just wait till the next day to water it. Yeah, that's the easiest way to kind of do it. It's just like test it out and don't water it if it's already, you know, really wet. Because what's going to happen is that you're not going to get oxygen to your roots, and your roots are going to get these fungal issues, and it's called dampening, and they're going to get root rot and die. That's like the #1 way these seedlings are going to die is if it's overwatering. Yeah, it's not a big deal if you just test. Just, you know, put your finger in there, maybe do a couple different ones. And if you have different plants, they might be drying out different ways or different distances from the light. So just test it out before you water. And then you know, thinning out. Once you get the second leaves, the true or the first true leaves, you can start thinning them out. If you have like 5 or 6 of them coming from a tray, maybe you want to cut them out. Sometimes though, I'll keep them in, and then I'll grow them all together. And then when I'm ready to plant, I'll just tease them all. I'll break them apart with my fingers, tease them out, and then I'll have 5 or 6 tomatoes. But you don't want. I mean, like, you know, that's fine to do a couple of them per seedlings. But if you have like 10 or 15 things coming out, you know, I mean, think about thinning them out to the point where they're not. And like, and if you don't have like a lot of space, maybe you do want to thin them out just to one plant, because they're going to be it's going to be a lot healthier if it's just by itself. But you can get away with growing a couple of them per seedlings if you want. There's a thing called brushing tops. When you start getting some decent growth on the top, you want to take your hand, just like lightly brush. Oh wait, just a second. Okay, never mind. You want to, sorry about that. You want to lightly brush your hand over the tops of these plants, and what that does is it stimulates root growth. You know, it kind of freaks out the plant a little bit, like, holy cow, what is that? And so they'll build more root growth, you know, just to stabilize themselves. So do that like once a day. It just lightly, don't get too forceful. You don't want to, you know, knock them out, but just lightly brush the tops of your seedlings, and that's going to build a lot stronger root systems. And then it's nice to have some kind of circulation. Like oscillating fans are the best. Like, you don't have to have a fan that's just like directly on your seedlings. I mean, I wouldn't prefer. I mean, that's actually going to dry your seedlings out really quickly. But just like having some kind of oscillating fan somewhere in the room where you're just getting some kind of, like, you know, circulation, or that's going to reduce different kinds of like fungal issues and things that you could have. And then again, like, raise your lights. Keep them 4 to 6 inches from the plants at all times. All right, another question: is it healthy to have seedlings beneath an air vent? That could be a form of circulation. I mean, as long as that the air is not too cold or too hot, as long as it's that air is, like, you know, close to 70 degrees. I mean, that could be all right. I mean, again though, if you have air blowing on your seedlings, just know that you might have to water them a little bit more. They're just going to dry out quicker. But having, you know, but yeah, I think that's a good place, as long as you're monitoring the soil temperature or the soil moisture. All right, and then potting up. So this is a good thing. So a lot of times people will start growing seedlings in January and February, you know, like their summer seedlings, and that's okay as long as you're committed to potting up. And those people that do, they have like these enormous, you know, seedlings that they put in the ground by May. You know, if you start your tomato seedlings in February, they're going to be ginormous. I mean, they're going to be eating tomatoes by early June. I mean, but at the same time, it's a lot more work. So basically, potting up is the idea of time to plant your seedlings, and we'll show you some. You know, sometimes it just doesn't work out, and it's not, you don't have a great root ball, and you just got to get them in the ground. But sometimes, ideally, you want it the soil, the whole entire soil block. You want it to be the solid root ball that you can just grab the base of the plant and pull it all out together. So the idea is, like, after like a week or so, you want to start testing them, just like lightly pulling the base of your plants, just to see if you can pull them out. And then once you can pull that whole root ball out, you may have another week or so, but you want it to look like this. You want it to see some roots, but not like this. You don't want the roots to wrap around, because that will get a lot of unhealthy growth, and it's an unhealthy seedlings. If you do ever buy one of these or have these, it's not the worst thing in the world. You just want to kind of tear off with your fingers, just kind of tear apart all the seedlings, kind of tease them all out. Maybe cut. I mean, if you can't tease them out, cut them off with some pruners, because you want because they'll continue to grow in like bad formations, and so you want them to get rid of that or tease them out. But the idea is, at this point, when you start seeding the seeds and you have a nice firm root ball, you either plant them in the ground, which you need to harden them off first and then plant in the ground, or you need to pot them up, which is basically just put them in a bigger pot with more soil, and that'll buy a couple more weeks and or another month, and then keep on doing the same thing, testing the base until you can pull that whole thing is one root ball, and then keep on potting them up until you're ready to plant. So yeah. And then some general tips. So if you do have one thing that you see a lot of is these like spindly, or like I forgot what they're called, the spindly kind of seedlings, the ones that are too tall and they're kind of looking like they're falling over, or we get a lot of these with like the windows. And not to say, I mean go ahead and try windows. I know a lot of people grow a lot of healthy seedlings, but you do sometimes get these things a little bit more spindly. So except, if you do have that, a couple things, just like keep on, like every couple days, rotate that, spin your seedlings around so they go back and forth. That will stimulate some really, good root growth. Maybe find some kind of supplemental light, if you could set up a light system, great, or just like kind of reflect it and things like that. Or if you're potting them up, if it's spindly, a lot of times like brassicas are just spindly in general. So you can bury them a little deep, and that will build a bigger root system. Damping off is like the biggest issue. So if you ever have a plant that's looking all healthy and then it just falls over like that, that's because it's damping off, and that's because we overwatered. And then there's we got some funguses on the roots, and then the roots, the plant died. So for that, again, just like, test, put your finger in, don't water seedlings that are already really moist. It's all right if it's like a little moist, that's fine. But if you put your finger in and it's like really wet, don't add any more water. Sometimes you have to, like if I'm going away, for a couple of days, I'll still water it really heavy. That's fine. You just don't want to do this like every day. You don't want to overwater it. That's a recipe to just kill your seedlings really quickly. Also, like if your seedlings are looking just like kind of sickly or pale, they probably need some fertilizers. Or if they're yellow or pale, so maybe think about giving it a good fertilization. And a lot of times to think about too, like bottom heat. Bottom heat is more efficient. Instead of, like, if you don't normally heat your entire house to 70 degrees, maybe you want to just provide some bottom heat, which is much more efficient than heating your whole house for your seedlings. So just some things to kind of think about. See, good to pot up in the quinoa large pot, so not to have pot. Yeah, I'm not sure what a quinoa is. If I don't know if you have like a picture of a link. If you want to send that to, we could share that. All right, and then planting what you grow, just some really quick. We talked a lot about this already, but hardening off. You don't just want to take these like seedlings that have been babied with like fertilizer and no winds and like perfect temperatures and all that stuff, and then throw them out in the deep end. Like you want to slowly move them out. So you find like a nice partially shaded, protected area that's not going to be too harsh from wind or anything, and just bring them out for like an hour. And the whole process is supposed to be like a week long. So you bring them out for an hour. And then the next day you bring them out for 2 hours. The next day you bring them out 3 hours, and then so forth. That's not. I mean, it just doesn't work so much with your schedule. But the idea is to just get them outside in a protected area for a little bit, and try to make it longer and longer each day for many. I mean, I probably only do it for 3 or 4 days. But if you want to have, you want to reduce transplant shock, you don't want to shock them off and delay them a little bit on their growth. It's a great idea to harden off if possible. If you have cold frames, just bring them in the cold frame, keep the door open all day, and then shut the door at night, and do that for a couple days. Oh, sorry. So the kind of, sorry about it. So it means so that's just a yeah. All right. So good to pot up in the kind of large pot, so as not to have to repot. Yeah. So a lot of people ask that question. Some of the problems of that, like, so that's why reason why people start in small pots. One is like spacing. Two is it's just hard to water it efficiently and fertilize it efficiently. Because if you have this giant pot, and it's really hard to to evenly water it out. So that's why people start with small things, so they can properly water, and the roots can suck up the water, so it's not just staying super wet, really long. So yeah, there's a lot, there's a lot of science behind why you want to start out with smaller pots and then work your way up. It's a lot easier to water, a lot easier to fertilize and things like that. That being said, I mean, you can always try it out. You just want to be really careful not to like you just want to water them in a little spot, maybe not fill the whole pot full of water, because it's just not going to dry out. And yeah, but I mean, like I said, I definitely recommend starting out with smaller pots and then potting up. I mean, those 2-inch, if you don't really want to deal with potting up though, the 2-inch pots, those cell packs, you could start out in the cell packs. I wouldn't really recommend starting out in anything bigger. Like the next step up from these is like 4-inch pots. But if you could start out with those, and you could end with those too, you grow them out for like a month or a month and a half, and then you can just plant them directly in. You don't need to pot them up at that point. So, but yeah, I mean, I know like it's just a lot harder to start up with bigger pots. But not to say you can't try it out. Definitely try it out, and if it works, let me know. All right, and then actually planting the seedlings. So when you're planting seedlings, you want to look for, if possible, a cloudy day. You don't want to plant on a sunny day, or if you do have to plant on a sunny day, don't plant right at noon where the sun's the hottest. You want to plant in the mornings or in the evenings, a couple hours before the sun down. The reason why you want to do it a couple hours before the sunset is if you get any water on the plant, you want it to dry off in the sun. Because you really want to just, if possible, only water soil. You don't want to water your plant, because if the water's still on it and the sun goes down, you could get some mildew issues and fungal issues and stuff. But sometimes you just have to, but it's just important not to make it a common practice. Yeah, and don't if it rains and if the ground's really wet, you don't want to plant too, because it's really easy. Like if you got to step into your garden and it's wet, you're going to compact that soil a lot more if it's wet, as opposed to if it's dry, it's going to bounce back a little bit better. So I definitely recommend don't plant after a rainstorm or a heavy watering. You want to let it dry out a little bit before and then water. Digging your holes, you want your holes to be 2-3 times the size of your transplants. Keep them kind of parallel. The top should be, unless you're doing tomatoes, I'll talk about tomatoes in a second, but the top should be somewhat parallel a little bit to the surface. You can put a little bit on top. And then like you can mix in, if you're not tilling and mixing in compost already, if you're doing a non-till, you could just mix in a little bit of compost in the backfill, and then lightly temper that backfill. Pulling seedlings. So this is always a little tricky. How do you get the seedlings out of these trays? A lot of trays have these holes in the bottom. You can actually put your finger and you can push it out. That works well. Just maybe putting them upside down and kind of shaking them a little bit. But if your seedling hasn't officially formed a root ball, but you just need to get this into the ground, you can use like a spoon or a fork or something, and then just kind of scoop it out like this, and then plant it as best as you can. You just want to be really gentle with these, and that's especially the reason why you don't want to plant this like on noon, because that sun's just going to dry out those roots even for a couple seconds. But yeah, ideally you want to be able to pull this out and have a nice root ball. But I mean, stuff happens, so you can't, timing is not always best. So you can plant these guys if you need to. They're just going to be need a lot more help. Planting, center of the hole, all that stuff. If you're worried about transplant shock, I always put a little bit of Epsom salt. Epsom salt is this amazing thing that's great, for a lot of different things, but it has a lot of magnesium, and magnesium helps with transplant shock. Transplant shock is when your plant just, maybe you're too rough, maybe you plant it, in the middle of the day and it dried out a little bit. Maybe it's just not, kind of plant that doesn't like to be transplanted. So it kind of, it struggles for a little bit before it can actually establish itself. So putting a little bit of Epsom salt, maybe a half cup or something, into a watering can, and then watering with the Epsom salt, that will help will help it with any kind of transplant shock. Tomatoes, we talked about this earlier, but if you have tomatoes, they really love to be planted deep. And it looks really sad. Like, look at that great, seedling, and you're going to plant most of it in the ground. It looks really sad, but I would really recommend planting 2/3 of your tomatoes in the ground, because what happens is tomatoes are really good at producing root systems from any part of the plant. So what all that stuff that you bury is eventually going to become this giant root ball, and then it's once that root ball is formed, it may take a week or two, but then it's just going to blow up, and it's going to grow faster than any of your other tomatoes that are planted on the surface. And that's like if you have a container that just doesn't go very deep, you can actually put them on the side, the seedling on the sides, and pop them up. So tomatoes are very versatile. All right. So now a couple last questions about seedlings. If you have any questions, let me know. And then we're about to go into propagation right now. But yeah, so what are seedlings can be planted sideways? That's really, I mean, you don't want to do seedlings sideways, but that's mainly if you have like a container that isn't very deep. You can, and that's really for tomatoes. I wouldn't do that with anything else, but you can lay it on the side and then just kind of pop up this. Yeah, it's a little bit, you know, tricky, but yeah, like I said, I wouldn't do that with any other seedlings though. I would keep your seedlings right side up. Is Epsom salt only good for transplanting, or is it good to use for watering in general? That's a good question. I mean, it does have a little bit of calcium, and it's mainly just magnesium, and it's got some other micronutrients. I know people have used it if they have like blossom end rots, which are calcium deficiencies and stuff. It could be. Yeah, I would just Google it. There's a lot of great websites that talk about all the different things that you can use Epsom salt, but I only use it for transplant shocks. Yeah, I bet you could probably fertilize it. But again, you don't want to over fertilize things, even if they're natural. I would never really fertilize more than like once a season or once a month, because all these things have salts, and over time, if you over fertilize, they'll start accumulating as opposed to just like naturally, like, you know, breaking down or washing away. So just yeah, never. Oh yeah, I would recommend not to not to fertilize anything more than once a season, at the most once a month. But I would start out once a season. All right. So the last part of this, unless there's any other questions, okay. So fertilizing seedlings does not count in once per season. No. So fertilizing seedlings is different. Um, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do more than once a week with seedlings, because you're not, I mean, they're not going to accumulate the salts as much as if you fertilize a lot throughout the year. But again, yeah, I mean, I only fertilize my seedlings once for the whole process, and I think that's sufficient. But you could fertilize more. I've heard people. I would recommend not to do it. Never do it more than like once a week, at the most. But like I said, I only do it once, and my seedlings are super happy. So it's kind of like maybe if you want to do more, I might research it a little bit more, like, you know, some Google over fertilizing, and just get some recommendations. All right, so DIY propagation. So this is the thing I love. I love propagation because I mean, you can, I mean, you can, if you just have a couple really great perennial plants, you know, like some herbs, some berry bushes, you know, things like that, you could just blow it up. And every year you could just make, you know, like, you know, dozens of new plants and stuff, and it's really exciting, and it's healthy for the original plant too, to kind of break it up too. So there's a lot of different ways to make, you know, propagate. We're going to talk about plant dividing, talk about tomato grafting, strawberries, things like that. But the first thing I want to talk about is propagating from cuttings. So this is a really great idea, like especially like if you have like fig trees and things like that. You can take these little branches, and you can, you know, cut off a piece of it. You can grow the roots from the bottom of it, and then you could replant it into your yard once you have a solid root ball. It's really cool. I'm going to show a demonstration in a second. But Okay, so yeah, one last question on should you still fertilize seedlings if worm castings were in the seed starting mix? So I probably wouldn't. If you were able to actually incorporate some compost, you probably don't need fertilizing. I would only recommend fertilizing if you're using a non-fertilized soil media, or growing media. So which most things are non-fertilized, like Pro Mix and Coconut Coir, they don't have nutrients. So if you're just using that stuff, you want to fertilize. But if you made your own growing media, and you incorporate some compost, especially vermicompost, yeah, I wouldn't worry about fertilizing at all with that. So cool. So cutting. So a lot of times, you know, so there's a lot of different ways you can cut, like soil cutting, watering, like you take a branch and leave it in water, let it, you know, roots go, air callus, making wounds and stuff, and simulating root growth from that. I'm just going to show soil because that's all I really know. But you can get you can get crazy with like a propagation from cuttings. And like some, you know, these are great with like rosemary, like, you know, perennial herbs, rosemary, sage, thyme, things like that, mint. You could do tomato grafts and stuff. We'll talk about in a second. Bigger things like grapes and stuff like that. You can figs. So we'll show you. So there's a quick process. I'll explain it to you, then I'll try to show you on my video cam. But so how it typically works is you're trying to you're looking for like a woody you know, not a flimsy, but like a woody kind of pencil-sized branch, pencil-sized like diameter. And the idea is you don't need a big branch. You just need like 4 to 6 inches, so nothing too big. And the most important thing is you need to identify the nodes. So you can see the nodes. Those are little, you know, that's where the buds form. That's where the leaves, you know, branch out, you know, flowers, things and stuff. So that's where a lot of the action happens at these nodes. And again, and that's when we bury that. That's when roots start, you know, the roots will start forming in these nodes. So the idea is you want to have like, you know, 3 to 4 nodes at least. And you, with the idea of you want to bury at least 2 nodes. So if you look at this, you got a top node with these branches, 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are 4 nodes right there. I can't tell if that's, it might be a 5th node, but I'm not sure. So there's definitely 1 node somewhere up here. So I would cut right below the 4th node, the 3rd or 4th node, cut right below that. And then what's going to happen is when I stick this into the soil, it's going to take a while for the roots to form. So at the same time, there's a thing called transpiration, where all the moisture, so a lot of times plants suck up too much water and they transpire it, which they basically just release it into the air from their leaves. So I want to slow that process down because I don't want this plant to dry out before the roots are formed. So I'm going to cut those leaves in half. So I'm going to reduce all the leaves by a half to a third. And then if I have some of this rooting hormone, I could dip it into this powder, and that's going to help stimulate root growth. It's all right if you don't have it. You can, you know, especially with things like figs and stuff, they don't need it. They're really good at propagating. But I'm going to dip that into the rooting hormone, and then I'm going to shove it into some good growing media, some good well-drained growing media, potting mix, you know, seedling mix. And then I'm going to water it really good. And then I'm going to make a humidity dome. But it's really important. I don't want this to be a completely sealed off humidity dome, because then you're going to, because it's going to take a lot. It's a little bit different than the humidity dome for the seedlings. The seedlings are completely sealed off, because you want to stimulate the seeds to grow, and then you remove it. But this, I mean, a lot of times you just putting a plastic bag over, loosely over, or if you have like a plastic thing, poke a couple holes into it. So you want to capture some of the humidity, but you don't want to have it completely humid, because then it's just going to start rotting the plant. So you want to have some kind of ventilation going on, and that's really for like the first week or so until you start getting some, you know, early root growth, and then you could take that off and just treat it normally, water it normally, but you don't need to water it once the humidity dome's on. So there's a kind of step-by-step here. Like they cut that branch off, they removed the leaves, they reduced a bunch of the leaves, and they stuck it in the soil, and then covered it, watered it, and then covered it with a plastic bag. So that's basically what you're going for. And then idea is once you have some root growth, you can start pulling it. You could, you know, give it little tugs on the base. And the idea is you want to have a nice sized root ball before you plant it. A lot of times, I mean, people recommend like, keep growing them in your house for like a year, you know, pot them up, you know, get a really healthy root ball, then plant them out. But I know some people have had success with a couple months. So it's just how long you really want to and how big the root ball and how much you want to pot up. But a lot of times you'll have like leaf growth on the top, and that could be tricky, because that could be a sign that you have root growth, but it also could be a sign that it's just using the last of the nutrients in the branch. So you how you tell by actual root growth is just giving it little tugs and making sure you got that, you know, nice root ball before you plant that. So okay, so I'm gonna turn on my video. I'm going to stop sharing for a second and turn on my video, and I'm going to try to show you all a little bit demonstration on so I ran out in my garden. I forgot I have like, you know, a 3-month-old and a 3-year-old, so my prep work is not very good right now, so I completely forgot. So I ran out and grabbed a couple things really quickly before class to kind of show you. So I got 2 branches right now. This is a rosemary, and this is some native flowering ornamental plant that my wife planted. I can't remember the name already, but I wanted to show you this. So you want to have a branch that's somewhat sturdy, so a great example is like this rosemary. If I, you know, see how flimsy that is. that's not a good propagating branch. That's going to actually rot before it starts getting wood, starts developing root system. So if I'm doing a rosemary, I probably would wait and more into the season and get like a stronger branch that's not going to flop around. Or I might just I'll show you how to divide plants. I can just divide my rosemary right now if I don't want to do cuttings. But this guy, I mean, if you see, he's not as flimsy. He's got some structure to it. There's a leaf up there, but yeah, he's got a little bit of structure to him. I probably would want him a little bit thicker, an ideal situation, like closer to pencil size. But this is good enough. This is pretty strong, in its first year growth. So it's really important. You don't want to like propagate like an old gnarly branch. You want to have first year growth, which is basically growth from last year. It's new growth, but you want to wait till it's it's not flimsy. So this is a good one. I don't know, see how well we can get, but if you look at this guy, so we have some nodes up here. We have a node up on top on the leaf. We have second one here, third one here. The leaves, you can see the leaves are coming out of the nodes, and the fourth one. So this is so I only want like really 4 nodes. I don't want a super long branch because it's just going to be too much energy, and it's going to probably rot before it grows roots. So really important, you need to get like a good pair of pruners. These like Felcos or Corona or something like that. You want to have they're called bypass pruners, where they just have blades on one side and then the other side is just like a solid thing. That makes really clean cuts as opposed to getting the pruners that have 2 blades. They're like scissors. They don't really cut very well. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to count my nodes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I identified my 4th node. I'm just going to cut this right below the 4th node. So that's going to be what I'm going to propagate. And I can keep on doing. I can propagate more on this too. I can make a couple different cuttings, which is a good idea because propagation, it's kind of tricky. They don't all survive, so it's a good idea to propagate more than you need. So I had this guy. He's got, he's like 4 to 6 inches tall. He's got some leaves on him. So I'm going to cut back this leaf. Okay, that leaf was for some reason did not want to get cut. So I'm going to cut that back, just to reduce the transpiration. And then the bottom 2 nodes are going to go into the soil. So I want to remove any leaves or anything coming from the bottom 2 nodes. So right now I'm ready to go. I got 2 nodes that are bare that I'm going to bury in the soil, and that's where the roots are going to come out. And then I got 2 nodes up here that are going to continue growing leaves, and I cut back the leaves, so the transpiration is going to be reduced. And then I don't have any rooting hormone, but if I had rooting hormone, I would probably dip that, at least it's the first 2 nodes into there, and then I would stick it into some kind of soil media, and then water it really good and put a loose plastic bag on top until, and then I'm going to check it, every other day and just give it a little tug. And once I start feeling a little bit of a tug and the roots are starting, you can tell when the roots are slowly coming. You don't want to give it yank it out. You just want to give it a little tug. Then I'll take the plastic bag off, and then I'll keep on just treating it like a seedling. It doesn't need a whole lot of light, maybe a south-facing window or something like that. And then I'll just treat it, for a couple months. I'll maybe. If the roots are really healthy, I'll pot it up, and it's like I said, some people will keep it growing in their house for a year, and then they'll plant it out with a nice fat root ball. But I may do it a little earlier, depending on what it is. And I'll show you what I have. I actually figs. If you have a fig tree, it's so easy to make like 1,000 fig trees out of one tree every year. And then we're like more like 100, but so I have a couple fig trees, and I prune them every year, and then I'll transplant them. So this is like I don't know if you can see it. So I made a bunch of clippings just what I did. I reduced all the leaves. I cut them back to 4 to 6 inch stems, and I buried two of the root nodes, and then kept 2 nodes on the top. And you can see, it's not 100% successful. So I got a couple of them that are leafing out that if I tug, I could feel like there's a good root system. And then I got some of them that are just like, yeah, this guy's goner. He's not going to make it. He's going to rot before he starts growing roots. But this guy, I'll show you a little bit. So this is what it looks like. you can start seeing like the white the parts. These are the roots that are starting to grow from those nodes. So they first start growing from the nodes. So that's why it's important to bury two nodes. So you'll start getting a decent sized root ball. So this one is growing. It's taking its time. We got a little bit of roots, coming back and forth. But yeah, normally I wouldn't pull it out like this. I just have a lot to play with. Yeah, I'll just put it back in, lightly pat it down, and like I said, realistically, I'll probably get like maybe 3 or 4 that will survive out all of these guys. So again, like aim high, do a lot of cuttings, just to ensure that you're gonna get that. But I mean, you could cut so many things. Like I have grapes, and figs and berries and stuff that I'll just do lots of cuttings all the time, and it's a great way to just really mass produce plants. So another question. So is it okay to put half of the rosemary in water to germinate? Or you mean like the branch or seeds? Because people do like, there's another method too. Let me get the PowerPoint back up. So yeah, people do like watering techniques. So they'll keep these branches in a cup of water. You got to change the water like every every day or two, or they'll start getting rotting, and they're able to like root these out. So I do this a lot with like sweet potatoes. Is how I like sweet potatoes. That's how if I'm propagating sweet potatoes, you keep the portion of the sweet potato in water, change the water every day, and then those sprouts will start coming up, and you pull those sprouts off and you put them in a cup of water and they'll root. So that's one way to do it. I just have a lot more success with soil. Yeah, and it's different plants like different things too. So did all the figs come from one branch or different branches? I have twigs from a neighbor. Do I make cuttings from one twig? Yeah, like I said, you're looking for a sturdy branch is no more bigger than the size of a pencil, and just about 4 to 6 inches. So, in new growth. So I prune a lot of fruit trees, so I'll grab those. And I prune like figs. You want to prune back a lot of new growth to stimulate a lot more growth. And so a lot of them, yeah, maybe like 1 or 2 of them came from one branch, but then, yeah, most of them came from different branches. From one to, yeah, you can make several cuttings. Again, if a branch has like 8 or 9 nodes, that could be 2 cuttings. But the most important thing I forgot to mention is you want to make sure keep it right side up. Which you can tell a lot of times if there's little buds, they'll be pointed upward. So you want to, or if there's leaves on top. If there's no leaves, you want to make sure the buds are pointing upward to actually do that. But yeah, make sure they're right side up because it will not grow upside down. All right, so that's it's a little tricky. I'm not gonna lie, cuttings. But then an easier way, a super easy way, is just divisions. So this one's really great. Like if you have like, asparagus, rosemary, horseradish, lemongrass, things like that. So this is super easy and super quick. Basically, you just dig up the root ball, and you want to do this every year because a lot of your perennial plants, like your rosemary and lavender, they'll if you don't divide them every couple of years, they'll actually get really woody, and then they'll get less productive over time. So they actually want to get more. They want to be divided. So the idea is you kind of like dig up the root ball. And you can use a shovel, a saw, pruners, whatever, and just like chop it up into pieces. And you want to do this right in the winter. So like February, March, April. You could do this any time of the year, but it seems to work best when they're dormant. But yeah, you're totally fine if you want to do this over the next week or two, or like this weekend. And then just one second. Sorry about that. I just had to answer text, but yeah. So Yeah, I mean, typically people wait when they're in the growing season or end of the winter, like March and April, or February and March. But you're fine in April, especially this weekend if you want to do that. So, idea is you dig up your root ball, your perennial plant, and you just kind of divide it into pieces. You can leave a decent sized chunk if you want, but yeah, leave like you leave maybe half to a third to a quarter, somewhere in that area, and depending on how much crop you want, that year. Because it's not going to grow back. It takes a while for it to grow back to the same size. But chop it up in little pieces. Leave a portion of it in your same hole to keep on growing, and then you could divide it up, and you could replant them around your garden or put them in pots and give them as presents and things like that. So it prevents like overcrowding. It's just a really great way to kind of like mass produce plants, and it's super easy, way easier than cuttings. You're literally just breaking plants apart into a couple of sections and then replanting them. It's just you want to like water them and tend them, and if they have a lot of leafy growth, you maybe reduce those leaves, until like they replant. Maybe give them some Epsom salt with the watering too, to help them kind of reestablish themselves. But yeah, it's and then strawberries. Strawberries are fantastic. If you have strawberry, I definitely recommend just planting strawberries all over your garden and just letting them run like crazy. But strawberries, what they do is they spread by having these runner roots. So they'll spread horizontally. And then they have these like baby plants. And the idea is you want to eventually, like strawberries will be good for, they produce a lot over a couple of years, but then they stop, the older plants stop producing. So the idea is you want to kind of thin them out because they'll overcrowd themselves really quickly. So you want to thin your strawberry plants out to at least have, 4 or 6 inches between each plant. And that's really easy to do. You just kind of find that runner root and just cut it. And then maybe cut, and then pull, a plant out. And you could either, if it's an old plant, maybe you just want to throw it away or compost it. But if it's still new plants, if it's still producing, maybe you could just, dig this guy up. It's real easy to dig up strawberries and just plant it somewhere else, put it in the pot, give it as a gift, and you could just keep, every year you just keep on doing that with your strawberries. And it's really easy to kind of like transplant them and give them to other people. A couple questions. Let's see. Okay. My rosemary never seems to grow full bloom. They're just straggly. Any suggestions? It might be the soil, the sunlight, a couple different things. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you want to send me a photo. I'll see if I can assess that. But email me a photo and I'll see if I can figure out what's going on. But a lot of time, it could just be like, maybe you want to give it some fertilizer. A lot of time, or something like that, or maybe it's just like, send me a photo. We'll try to figure that out. We'd love to get a fig cutting from you if you're sharing, for sure. Let me see what figs actually survive, and then if they're ready, I'll give a shout out. Hopefully, we'll be able to we'll be past social distancing by then. Those figs are probably going to take several more months, if not longer, before I have a decent enough root ball where I feel comfortable putting it in the ground. Should you allow your herbs to bloom? I have my rosemary in large 10-gallon planters. Should I remove and replant them? Like by blooming, definitely let your bloom. Like sometimes you don't want, certain things, like particularly annuals, like basil, like if I see them, it's about to bloom and I'm not ready to stop eating it, I'll cut the blooms off. And it's still, though, it can buy yourself some time, but when a plant wants to bloom, it's going to bloom. So you're just buying yourself time. But herbs that are blooming are fantastic for building ecosystems in your garden, for attracting pollinators and beneficial insects. So if they do bloom, let them bloom. That's going to attract a lot of great beneficial insects to your garden. And then you have it in a 10-gallon planter. Should I remove and replant? You can. Like once they start getting really woody. Just 1 second. So once it gets like pretty woody, you can start. I would recommend replanting them. You could keep them in the same containers. Just kind of like just cut off. You don't even need to dig up the root ball. You can just kind of you can tell where the plant is, and just kind of use a shovel or whatever, and just cut off a section. And you don't need to do this every year. But once you start seeing it's getting overcrowded, it's producing left. It's a good sign to start dividing your plants. All right, and then grafting tomatoes. So I don't know. I'm not an expert on grafting tomatoes. I know FONA, the Friends of the National Arboretum, have classes and stuff. But basically, you're growing a top of your tomato, and you're growing this like rootstock for certain traits of another junk tomato, and then you cut them off and you graft them together with some kind of plastic, seal that seals them together. You got to keep tend them for a little while. And then and then hopefully they'll fuse together. And the idea behind this is like you say you have a really great tomato, but it has disease issues. So maybe you grow a disease-resistant rootstock and then attach it to your cherry, gold tomatoes or whatever that you love, and then all of a sudden your tomato that you love has it's disease resistant. But like I said, I don't have a whole lot, but here's some instructions to that, and you could definitely check out some webinars and things like that. And then if you want some more resources, there's some really great links on videos and things on how to propagate, how you grow seedlings, things like that. And yeah, that's basically the last of the slide. If we want to, I'll stick around for just a couple minutes. I do need to get going here a second, but if anyone has any last second questions, I'll definitely, you can unmute yourself or type them out. I'll probably have about 2 more minutes, and then I got to head out. I hear the 3-month-old is screaming pretty loud. So, but thank you all so much. Ask me real quick if you have any questions, or if not, just email me anything, and then I'll see you all next week. All right, I do have to go, so I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting. But thank you all. Stay safe and take care.